The first time this drama made me sit up like, wait, what did she just do, is not even the twins reveal. It's earlier. It's that quiet, humiliating moment where Jodie is standing under a dragonborn archway in the capital market, smelling like soot and winter rain, and the man who promised to marry her looks straight at her birthmark like it's a crime scene. And Paul doesn't even have the decency to whisper. He says it out loud. In front of vendors and guards and people who suddenly remember they have somewhere else to be. That's the vibe of Came Back Hotter with Lord's Twins, fantasy romance, sure, but with this really mean, painfully human streak of public rejection that lands like a slap. Welcome back to Jonota News, by the way. If you like long, detailed drama yaps where I spiral a little over character choices and micro-expressions, you're in the right place, and if you end up enjoying this one, consider subscribing, no pressure, just saying. I'm going moderate on spoilers today. We are absolutely talking about the big early and mid-game turns, because the show wants you to feel them, but I'm not going to stomp all over the most late-stage endgame resolutions beat for beat. So, canon facts, because this script is insane in the best way, Jodie Vera is born with Dragon Slayer blood. Not, my grandma was a witch, blood, not, chosen one, blood in the generic sense. Dragon Slayers in this world are political weapons. Their veins carry a specific old magic that interrupts draconic fire, breaks curse-binding runes, and, here's the part the show keeps returning to, forces truth to the surface in the presence of flame. And the mark on Jodie's cheek isn't just an ugly birthmark. It's a visible ember brand, a branching stain the color of dried rust that creeps from the edge of her mouth toward her ear like someone pressed a burning leaf against her skin in the womb. It's treated as a bad omen by polite society, but the people who actually understand power know what it means. Which is why the cruelty of Paul's rejection hits different. He doesn't just dump her because she's not pretty. He dumps her because being seen with an ember-branded woman is dangerous. It paints a target on his soft little noble neck. And Paul is soft. That's what the drama nails. He's not a mustache-twirling villain in episode 1. He's worse. He's a man who wants the image of bravery without paying the cost. When Jodie's mother tries to salvage it, literally tries to bargain her daughter's dignity like it's a trade route, Paul gives that rehearsed speech about duty and the stability of the dragon lands. Then he marries someone safe and decorative within 3 episodes. There's this shot of Jodie watching the wedding procession from behind a veil of hanging lanterns, and the camera stays tight on her eyes while the lantern light flickers orange over her mark like it's trying to set her on fire. That's the show telling you, this isn't going to be a story about her getting prettier to win him back. This is going to be a story about people who underestimated what it means to burn. Because right when Jodie hits rock bottom, banished from the Vera estate, sleeping in the back of an apothecary wagon, taking coin for healing work she should have been paid triple for, she stumbles into the one man in the entire realm who literally cannot stop burning. Nick is introduced like a horror myth that wandered into a romance. The Lord of the Burning Realm. Ashen Court. Infernal borders. People say his castle bleeds heat. People say you can see his silhouette walking the battlements at night, a man-shaped torch. When the show finally lets you see him clearly, it's not glamorous at first. He's in a chamber of black stone, kneeling, hands braced on the floor like he's trying not to scream. Flames lick up his arms in these thin blue tongues, not normal fire, curse fire, too clean, too hungry. His hair is damp with sweat. His jaw is clenched so hard the muscles jump. And the sound design here is genuinely nasty. The crackle isn't cozy campfire crackle, it's the sharp hiss of meat meeting heat, layered with this low, metallic ringing like a bell being struck underwater. I remember watching that scene and going, okay, they're not playing. This curse is body horror. The rules are clean, too. Nick's been cursed to burn alive for a century. Not burn and die. Burn and live. Burn and remain conscious. Burn and rule anyway, because the burning realm is a border power, and if he collapses, the dragon lands get swallowed by the wild wastes. The show does that classic thing where a fantasy curse is also a metaphor, chronic pain, inherited violence, leadership as suffering, but it doesn't get precious about it. It makes you look at him suffering in real time. And then it makes you watch how everyone around him uses that suffering. Because Melody is already there, and Melody is one of those characters where the drama basically dares you to hate her on sight. She's Nick's court oracle, caretaker, advisor, whatever title she needs in the moment. Always dressed in pale fabrics that shouldn't survive in a place called the Burning Realm, which is a visual flex the costume department clearly enjoyed. She calls him, my lord, like it's a lullaby and a leash at the same time. And she's been telling the court for years that the curse is holy punishment, that enduring it proves Nick's divine right. She has built an entire power structure around his agony. So when Jodie wanders into this world, she's not just a romantic disruption. She's a threat to Melody's religion. Here's where the drama does its first really addictive pivot. Jodie's touch stops the fire. Not gradually. Not with some 10-minute chanting montage. It's instant, and it's filmed like a miracle and an invasion at the same time. The scene is set up with this almost claustrophobic pacing. Jodie is brought in as a healer because someone heard rumors about the Ember brand, and the court is desperate enough to try anything. She's shaking, not in a cute way, like actual fear, because the heat in that chamber warps the air. Her eyelashes are damp. Her hands are raw from travel. Nick doesn't even look up at first, because he's used to false hope. Melody stands off to the side, eyes narrowed, already contemptuous, already ready to call Jodie a fraud. And then Jodie kneels behind him, hesitates for half a breath, and places her palm on his back. The sound drops out. Like the world holds its breath. The flames don't sputter, they retreat. They slide off him like they're being pulled away by an invisible tide. The blue light in the room fades to a dull ember glow. Nick's shoulders sag, not romantically, not, oh my savior, but like someone just cut the strings holding him upright. He inhales, and it's the first full breath you've seen him take. And he turns his head just enough to look at her over his shoulder, eyes red-rimmed, expression caught between suspicion and a kind of furious relief. Jodie's hand stays planted like she's afraid if she lifts it, he'll ignite again. And the camera goes tight on her fingers against his skin. You can see a faint sheen of sweat, you can see the tremor, you can see her thumb flex like she's grounding herself through him. That's when I bought the pairing. Not because it's hot yet, though the show absolutely knows what it's doing later, but because it's intimate in a way fantasy romances forget to be. It's care. It's consent without words. It's need that isn't greedy. And the drama immediately twists the knife by making Nick kind of awful about it at first. Which is good. It's believable. He's been tortured for years. He's suspicious. He's a lord who has learned that every kindness has a price. So he doesn't say thank you. He says, who sent you? He says, what do you want? He tries to stand, sways, and the fire threatens to surge back like a jealous thing. Jodie clamps down harder, like, no, sit. And you can tell she's not doing it for political advantage. She's doing it because she cannot watch someone burn. Now, one question hangs over these early episodes like smoke: why is Jodie the only one who can do this? The show gives you the answer, but it makes you earn it. Dragonslayer blood was engineered, yes, engineered, centuries ago through oath binding with dragon fire itself. The Ember brand is the visible residue of that pact. And there's this folklore line that keeps popping up: only the marked hand can command the flame. It sounds like poetry until you watch it happen. And just when you think this is going to be a straightforward rescue romance, the drama pulls the messiest, most satisfying decision. Jodie doesn't stay as a kept cure. She refuses to become court property. She refuses Melody's attempts to house her. She refuses Nick's first offer, which is basically a gilded cage with extra blankets. She negotiates. She demands her own room, her own freedom of movement, access to the Burning Realm archives, and safe passage back to the Dragonlands whenever she chooses. It's one of the first times Nick looks at her like, oh, you are not here to be saved. You are here to survive. But of course, power doesn't like a woman who can walk away. And that's when Melody starts poisoning the air. The show's writing around Melody is infuriatingly accurate to real-life manipulation. She never says, "I hate her." She never throws a tantrum. She plants ideas. She asks questions that sound like concern. Why would a dragon slayer come now? Why does she demand the archives? Why does she touch you so easily, my lord? She frames Jodie's boundaries as suspicious. She frames Jodie's compassion as seduction. And because Nick is vulnerable, physically, politically, he listens more than he should. You can feel the trap closing because the drama keeps giving you these small moments that turn out to matter. Nick falling asleep for the first time in years with Jodie's hand on his wrist, his brow finally unknotted. Melody watching from behind a screen, her face still, her fingers slowly tightening around a prayer bead until it bites into her skin. Jodie reading about the centennial burn curse in the archive, realizing it wasn't cast by an enemy kingdom like everyone claims, but by someone inside the Ashen Court. A servant boy slipping Jodie a warning note and getting dragged away to scenes later. The show doesn't scream its clues. It lets dread accumulate. And can we talk about how the burning realm is filmed? Because it's not just orange filters. They shoot it like a place that never sleeps. The shadows are sharp. The candle flames are too tall. The air looks thick. Even water seems heavy there. There's this recurring wide shot of the Ashen Court corridor where heat ripples distort the long line of pillars, so characters look like they're walking through a mirage. It's such a smart way to make the environment feel like part of the curse. And then when Jodie arrives, you start seeing cooler tones creep in, steel blues in her night scenes, pale moonlight on her hands when she's touching Nick. Visually, she becomes relief. But relief doesn't mean safety, and the drama makes that clear the moment Nick starts wanting her for reasons that scare him. Here's where the romance turns feral in a very specific, very deliberate way. Nick isn't a gentle male lead. He's not emotionally fluent. He doesn't do pretty confessions under flower petals. When he realizes her touch calms the fire, something in him basically goes, "Mine," and he hates himself for it. There's a whole sequence where he orders the court to keep Jodie close, for security reasons, then catches himself staring at her mouth while she's lecturing him about consent. The actor playing Nick does this thing with his eyes, he doesn't widen them, he doesn't do soap opera shock. He just fixes on her, like he's trying to memorize what peace looks like. And when she calls him out, his jaw ticks, like anger is the only language he's fluent in, and he's furious that it's failing him. Jodie, meanwhile, is not immune. And I appreciated that the show let her be messy about it. She's been rejected, shamed, treated like a blemish. Now she's in a realm where her ugliness is irrelevant because her power is undeniable. Nick looks at her like she's necessary, like she's wanted, and there's this dangerous sweetness in that. The drama could have played it as a simple glow-up fantasy, but it doesn't. It keeps reminding you Jodie is terrified of being used again. So even when she's drawn to him, she keeps one foot pointed toward the door. And then we get the night. The night the title is basically winking about. It's not filmed like a sweet first time. It's filmed like two people trying to outrun a curse with skin. The setup is almost cruel. Nick has a flare-up so violent it drops him to his knees in the council chamber. Nobles panic. Guards draw swords like that would help against fire. Melody rushes in with her soft voice and her, "My lord," trying to get between them. Jodie pushes past her, doesn't shove, just steps through with this calm, lethal focus, and takes Nick's hands in both of hers. The fire collapses again, but this time it doesn't just retreat. It clings to her skin like it recognizes her. You see faint ember veins light up under Jodie's palm, like her blood is answering. It's the first hint that her connection to him is not just medical. It's ancient. Nick, still shaking, pulls her close too fast. Not violent, but desperate. He presses his forehead to hers. Their breaths fog together in the cooler air that forms around them when the fire recedes. And then the camera does this slow rotation around them while the nobles fade into blur, like the world is spinning but they've found the center. Jody whispers, "You are burning again," and Nick whispers back, "Then don't let go." It's the simplest line, and it wrecked me more than it should have. Because it's not romantic poetry. It's a plea. Later, in his chambers, it's quieter, and that's what makes it feel intimate instead of just spicy. The flames in the hearth are low, almost respectful. Jody's fingers trace the healed skin where the curse usually eats him alive, and Nick flinches at softness like it's pain. When they kiss, it's not polished. He's too hungry, she's too cautious, and the tension between those two impulses is the entire show in a nutshell. There's a moment where Jody stops, breathes, and says, very clearly, "If this makes me your cure, I'm leaving." And Nick, voice rough, answers, "If you leave, I'll still burn." And you can hear in that line that he's not trying to guilt her, he's stating a fact he hates. Then he adds, "Quieter, but I won't chain you." He says it like it costs him blood. And yes, they sleep together. The show doesn't pretend they don't. It just treats it with this weight like both of them know they're stepping into something that will change the politics of two realms. The music drops into a low, almost ritual drumbeat, and the editing lingers on hands and breath and the way Nick's firelight flickers across Jody's mark. It's sensual, but it's also unsettling, because you can feel the consequences circling. And consequences come fast, because the next morning, Jody does the one thing that made me yell at my screen and also completely understood. She leaves. Not because she doesn't feel anything. Because she feels too much, and she's smart enough to know Melody will weaponize it. And she's right. The show makes Jody's departure sting by keeping it small. No grand escape. No, "I'm doing this for your own good" monologue. She just gets dressed before sunrise, wraps her hair, looks at Nick sleeping, finally sleeping, like a man who hasn't rested since he was cursed, and her face does this tired, complicated thing. Love, fear, grief, determination. She presses her fingertips to his wrist one last time to make sure the fire stays down long enough for him to wake without screaming, then she slips out. The camera follows her down that long heat-warped corridor, and for the first time the ashen court feels colder, emptier, like the castle itself knows it's losing its one patch of peace. A guard nods at her because Nick ordered her safe passage, and that little nod is devastating because it implies she could have stayed if she wanted to. But she doesn't. She walks out of the burning realm gates with nothing but a satchel and a stomach that hasn't started showing yet. And here's the rehook that the drama lands like a punch. Melody is waiting at the balcony, watching Jody disappear into the hatch, and she smiles. Not a big smile. A private one. Like she just watched someone take the bait. Because Melody's like campaign starts immediately. She tells Nick that Jody stole court sigils. She tells him Jody was seen near the archive vault. She tells him the healer was a Dragon Slayer agent sent to weaken him, and the touch that soothed him was a method of control. She reframes intimacy as espionage. And Nick, who wants to believe Jody was real, who wants to believe he wasn't just desperate enough to fall for the first warmth he felt in years, reacts like a wounded animal. He doesn't calmly investigate. He lashes out. This is where the show makes a choice that I think some viewers are going to hate, but I weirdly respect it. Nick's wrongness is not softened. He does not get an immediate misunderstanding cleared in episode 8. He doubles down. He orders searches. He interrogates servants. He throws one of Jody's few allies, the servant boy who warned her, into the ember cells. You watch Nick become the very kind of Lord Jody feared, a man whose pain justifies cruelty. And if you are sitting there like, okay, he's irredeemable, I get it. I had that reaction too. But the drama is playing a longer game about what curses do to people. Nick's curse isn't only fire. It's distrust. It's isolation. It's being trained by an entire court, by Melody, to believe love is a con. So when Jody leaves, the narrative doesn't go, Nick is bad. It goes, Nick is predictable. Which is, honestly, scarier. Meanwhile, Jody's storyline shifts to survival mode in the Dragon Lands. We don't get a cozy time skip immediately. We sit in the aftermath. Jodie returns to a homeland that already rejected her once, now with the added danger that she's carrying the burning lord's heirs that would be considered political leverage, or worse, proof of treason. And the dragon lands are a completely different palette. Cool greens, slate skies, wet stone. The capital, Drakenfall, looks like it was carved rather than built, all jagged rooftops and spires shaped like dragon teeth. The soundscape changes too. Less crackle, more wind, distant wing beats, the low groan of chained dragons in the royal eyrie. It's gorgeous, but it feels judgmental. Like the whole land is watching you. Jodie thinks she can hide. She can't. Because the Vera family, her own blood, are not simply mean. They're desperate. Dragonslayer bloodlines have been diluted over generations, and the royal court has been quietly hunting for any pure Emberbrand carriers because they need a weapon against the burning realm and the wild wastes. Jodie's mark makes her valuable in a way that has nothing to do with love. Her family wants to control that value. Paul's family wants to erase the scandal. And the court wants to use her body like a treaty document. There's this brutal scene where Jodie goes to her father's estate at night, hood up, just trying to ask for safe shelter until she can figure out what to do. She's met at the gate by her older brother Garen, who used to sneak her sweets as a kid, and you can see the conflict on his face before it hardens. He doesn't hug her. He doesn't even ask where she's been. He looks at her hood, at the edge of her Emberbrand, and says, "You shouldn't have come back." And the way he says it isn't hatred. It's fear. Which, again, is worse. Jodie gives birth off screen, but the show still makes it visceral. We see the before and after like scars. We see her hands gripping the wooden post of a midwife's hut. We hear her breath tearing. We see the midwife's face go pale when the first baby cries, because the cry is not normal. It's too bright, too sharp, like a spark catching. Then the second cry joins it, harmonizing in this airy way, and the hut lantern flames flare in response. Twin girls. Burning blood. Dragonslayer blood. A combination that makes every political predator in the realm salivate. And those girls are not props. That's another thing this drama gets right early. The twins have presence. They're not just cute. Even as infants, the show frames them like they matter. Little hands flexing, and the air warming. A midwife whispering an old protective chant and drawing ash marks on their foreheads. Jodie staring at them with this look that's equal parts awe and terror, because she knows what their existence means. She knows Nick would want them. She also knows the Dragonlands would take them. And she knows Melody would kill them if it meant keeping control of Nick. Now, the storyline anchor says Jodie walked away pregnant with twins, and 5 years later she returned to the Dragonlands for her daughters. That means something key happens in between, and the drama handles that stretch with this slow, painful compression. Jodie does not get to just raise them in peace. She gets hunted. There's an attempted snatch in episode 6 that is staged like a thriller. Jodie is living under a false name in a riverside village, hair dyed darker with walnut stain, Emberbrand covered with medicinal clay. She's carrying one twin on her hip, the other walking beside her holding a ribbon tied to her wrist so they don't get separated in crowds. It's one of those tiny mother details that made my chest ache because it's so real. Moms do that. Jodie pauses at a bread stall, and the baker smiles too widely. The camera lingers on the baker's hand, no flour dust. Clean nails. Soldier hands. Then everything goes wrong at once. A cart dips in the street like an accident. People shout. A cloak sweeps past Jodie's shoulder, and the ribbon goes taut. One twin yelps. Jodie whips around, and there's a man already lifting the child like a sack. Jodie's face doesn't do panic first. It does calculation. She drops the bread, lunges, grabs the kidnapper's wrist, and you see the Emberbrand under her clay-covering pulse, literally pulse, like a heartbeat of fire. The kidnapper's sleeve catches flame. Not Nick's curse flame. Jodie's blood flame, hot and clean and furious. The man screams. Villagers scatter. Jodie doesn't chase, she pulls both twins to her chest, turns, and runs, ducking into an alley as smoke rises behind her. And the sound design brings back that metallic ringing from Nick's curse scenes, linking them, like the same ancient magic is vibrating under both their skins. That's the moment Jodie realizes she can't keep them with her without painting a target on their heads every single day. She needs them somewhere protected by bigger power than her own two hands. So she makes the choice that defines her for the next chunk of the story. She gives her daughters up, temporarily, to the only sanctuary that can hide them from noble courts and burning lords alike, the Skyhold Convent, a remote dragon priest sanctuary carved into a cliff where warding runes are etched into the stone with dragonbone dust. The nuns aren't sweet. They're practical. They don't coo. They test the twins' aura by holding them near a flame and watching how the flame behaves. The flame bows. That's when the Mother Superior's expression shifts from suspicion to grim respect. Jodie begs. Not prettily. She bargains again, like she did with Nick. She offers service. She offers blood. She offers to leave and never return if it keeps her girls safe. The Mother Superior agrees on one condition: Jodie cannot remain. If she stays near the twins, the bond will draw hunters. Distance is part of the word. And I'm going to be honest, I had to pause here. Because that kind of separation, especially after we watched her fight for them in that alley, hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. I've got a soft spot for any story where motherhood isn't just aesthetic, where it costs something tangible. Jodie kissing their foreheads, one by one, trying not to sob because she doesn't want them to smell fear on her, it got me. It actually got me. I don't even have kids. It just tapped that primal thing in my brain that goes, separation is violence even when it's necessary. So Jodie leaves, and the show does a time jump. 5 years. And it doesn't do the lazy thing where 5 years equals new hairstyle and confidence. It treats the 5 years like a furnace. When she comes back, she's not recognizable. That's canon, and the drama sells it with a transformation that's half magic, half trauma. The ember brand fades. Not completely at first, there are still faint branching traces under certain light, but it's no longer that loud stain that made people flinch. And her face changes, not in a plastic surgery way, but in a Dragon Slayer rebirth way. The show explains that Dragon Slayer blood, when activated by childbirth with an elemental bloodline like Nick's, triggers a molting, a shading of old scar identity. Her cheekbones look sharper, her eyes brighter, her skin clearer, like her body finally stopped fighting itself. But the real reason she's unrecognizable isn't just the fading mark. It's that she learned how to carry herself. Early Jodie shrinks. She apologizes with her shoulders. 5 years later Jodie moves like someone who expects doors to open, and if they don't, she'll open them with her foot. She's dressed in travel leathers, hair pinned with a plain iron clasp, no jewelry, no soft colors. And the camera loves her now in a different way, less, poor rejected girl. More, woman walking into enemy territory with a plan. And here's the delicious cruelty of the plot: Nick is also different now. Because while Jodie spent 5 years surviving and sharpening, Nick spent 5 years being lied to. Melody's poison didn't stop at, she stole something. Melody built an entire narrative around Jodie as a seductress assassin who used Dragon Slayer tricks to weaken him and then fled with information that could break the Burning Realm's defenses. Nick, furious and ashamed that he let himself be touched, becomes even more ruthless. He turns the Ashen Court into a surveillance state. He starts collecting Dragonbone artifacts. He sends emissaries into the Dragonlands under trade pretense. And every time his curse flares, Melody is there with her pale sleeves and her soft eyes, pretending she's the only one who never betrays him. So when Jodie returns to the Dragonlands to reclaim her daughters from Skyhold Convent, she's walking into a political web that's been tightening for half a decade. Paul is now a rising court official, smug in that polished way men get when they think they've outrun consequences. The Vera family has split into factions, some want to sell Jodie out, some want to use her, and one sibling in particular wants her dead because her existence threatens their inheritance. And Nick. Nick has been convinced that the woman who soothed his fire was a lie. The question is not whether they'll collide. The question is what happens when the one person who can stop him from burning walks back into his orbit wearing a face he can't recognize. And that's exactly where the show starts getting kind of addicting in a I hate everyone, press play way, because the tension isn't just romance tension anymore. It's identity tension. It's revenge tension. It's maternal desperation rubbing up against imperial power. Jodie's return is staged with this delicious spy thriller precision. She enters Drakenfall under the name Jade Moran, posing as a merchant's widow. There's this little moment at the city gate where the guard is lazily inspecting papers, bored, and Jodie's hand is perfectly steady as she offers the bribe coin. The guard's fingers brush hers, and for the faintest second the ember brand under her skin glows like a coal. The guard jerks back like he got burned, then looks around, confused, embarrassed, and waves her through because he doesn't want to admit he felt something unnatural. Jodie doesn't even blink. She just walks in. Inside the city, everything is stacked against her. The Skyhold convent is now under royal scrutiny because rumors spread about to little girls who make flames bow. Paul's wife, Alina, is hosting charity events that are basically information farms, and she's the kind of character who smiles like honey and moves like a knife. Melody has agents in Drakenfall too. Yes, she's reached across realms, because her obsession isn't just controlling Nick, it's erasing the one person who proved his curse could be calmed by someone other than her. And the Vera family has posted discreet notices about a missing disgrace returning, because they want to capture Jodie before the crown does. It's a lot. But the drama keeps it readable by anchoring everything in one clear emotional goal. Jodie wants her daughters back. Not for romance. Not for revenge. For them. And the most tense part is that Jodie can't just walk into Skyhold and take them. The Mother Superior will not release them unless Jodie can prove she can protect them. Which means Jodie has to build power fast. She starts meeting with outcast Dragonslayer sympathizers, old veterans who remember when Dragonslayers were heroes instead of tools. She reconnects with a black market runesmith named Oren who owes her a life debt from her healer days. She even, in one of the show's better morally grey choices, approaches Paul, not to beg, but to threaten. That confrontation is so satisfying because Jodie doesn't rage. She smiles. She sits across from Paul in a tea pavilion while rain taps on silk canopy, and she lets him underestimate her for a full minute. Paul looks at her new face and doesn't recognize her. He compliments her poise. He flirts a little. And you can see Jodie's disgust like a shadow passing over her eyes. Then she drops one sentence, softly, "Do you still dream of the Ember brand?" Paul freezes. His cup trembles. The actor playing Paul does this tiny swallow like he's trying to push fear back down his throat. He leans forward, squinting, trying to place her. And Jodie tilts her head just enough that the light catches the faint remnants of the mark near her jawline. Not enough for anyone else to see. Just enough for him. Paul's face drains. He whispers her name like it's a curse. And Jodie, calm as winter, says, "I'm not here to be abandoned twice." That's when you realize the drama understands something crucial. The best revenge isn't screaming. It's composure. It's being unshakable in front of someone who once made you feel small. But the second Jodie starts moving pieces, the story punishes her for it. The Vera family learns she's in the city. Her brother Garen, remember, fear masquerading as cruelty, sends hunters to tail her. The crown's inquisitors start asking questions about a widow with too many coins and too much confidence. And Nick's emissary arrives in Drakenfall the same week, a fire-marked knight named Sir Kale, carrying an invitation sealed in black wax with an ember pressed into it. That invitation is Melody's doing. She wants to lure Jodie out. She wants to confirm whether the woman in Drakenfall is truly the one who left. And she wants Nick to be the weapon that destroys her. So she feeds Nick just enough truth to make him act. she tells him the Dragon Slayer woman has resurfaced, possibly connected to rumors of two flamboyant children. Nick, who has been simmering in rage for 5 years, does not send a polite letter. He comes himself. And the show makes his arrival feel like weather. Like the temperature in the city shifts. Like the air gets sharper. You see people glance up at the sky because smoke is drifting where there shouldn't be smoke. You hear distant bells. Then the burning realm convoy rides through the gates, black horses snorting steam, armor edged with heat runes, banners that look like charred cloth. Nick rides at the front, cloak hanging heavy, eyes like banked coals. And if you are expecting him to be instantly softer because, romance, nope. He looks like a man who turned his pain into policy. He dismounts, boots hitting wet stone, and the puddles around his feet briefly steam. The cinematography here is doing overtime. They frame him low and wide, making him look like a walking disaster. They cut to Jodie watching from a balcony across the street, hidden behind a lattice screen, and the sound drops again, just like the first touch scene, because the drama wants you to feel the pull even before they see each other clearly. And here comes the cruel, delicious part, Nick doesn't recognize her. Not immediately. Because her mark faded, her face changed, and 5 years of bitterness have rewritten his memory. Melody has been narrating Jodie into a monster for so long that when the real woman is within arm's reach, Nick's brain refuses to map her onto the villain he's been hating. So when they finally end up in the same room, at a royal reception Paul is hosting, because of course it's Paul, the cowardly social climber still inserting himself into everything, Nick's gaze slides over Jodie like she's another noble's widow. Jodie keeps her posture perfect, her smile polite, her hands clasped so he can't see the faint ember glow under her skin. And I'm telling you, the tension in that scene is so tight it made me laugh once, like a stressed-out laugh. Because you can feel the universe screaming, "That's your fated mate, you idiot," and the characters are trapped inside their own lies and misrecognition. Nick speaks to her once, briefly, without knowing. He says something about the Dragonlance air being too cold. Jodie answers, "Cold keeps people honest." Nick's eyes flicker at that, like the phrase snagged on something in his memory. He leans closer, just a fraction, and for 1 second the fire under his skin responds to her proximity. The candle flames on the table bend toward her. It's subtle. Most people miss it. Melody doesn't. Melody's gaze cuts across the room like a whip. She steps between them with that practiced softness and says, "My lord, the queen wishes to speak." Pull, redirect, isolate. Always. And Jodie, watching Melody up close for the first time, realizes something that changes the entire vibe. Melody isn't just a jealous court woman. Melody is terrified. Terrified in that rigid, controlled way of someone whose entire identity is built on being necessary. Because if Nick can be soothed by anyone else, Melody becomes nothing. That's where I'll pause this run, because the next sequence is when the drama stops being a slow burn and starts lighting fuses everywhere at once, and the way Jodie's daughters get pulled into the open is genuinely stressful to watch in the best possible way. Melody pulling Nick away at that reception isn't just a social interruption, it's basically the show flashing a neon sign that says, "This woman has been managing his line of sight for 5 years." And the camera makes you feel it. Nick's body angels back toward Jodie like a compass needle, but Melody physically shifts into his path, her sleeve brushing his arm like a claim. Nick lets her, which tells you how deep the conditioning goes. Then Jodie's eyes follow them, and you get that tiny tightening at the corner of her mouth. She's not jealous in a petty way, she's cloaking a pattern. She knows what it looks like when a powerful man has a handler. What I love is Jodie doesn't chase. She doesn't do the classic drama move where the female lead runs after the male lead through a hallway like, "Nick, wait." She stays blunted, keeps smiling at whatever noble is talking at her, and you can see the math happening behind her eyes. If Melody can steer him that easily, then Jodie cannot afford an emotional slip. If she wants her daughters, she needs leverage that isn't just, "I loved him once." And that's the episode's real tension, watching her swallow the personal hurt to protect the mission. Because the mission is time-sensitive now. Nick's arrival in Drakenfall doesn't just raise the temperature, it raises the price on Jodie's head. The minute the burning lord is in town sniffing around, flamboying children, every faction that's been half interested becomes fully activated. The Dragon Crown wants those twins as military assets. The Veras want them as bargaining chips to crawl back into favor. Paul wants them erased because their existence proves he abandoned a dragon slayer who was powerful enough to bear heirs for a rival lord. And Melody wants them, not even for their own sake, but because the twins are proof that Jodie was real to Nick. Children are inconvenient facts. Melody cannot argue with living proof. So the next sequence is this tense little cat-and-mouse stretch where Jodie tries to reach Skyhold Convent before the city's rumor mill does. And Skyhold, by the way, is one of the best sets in the drama. It's not a shiny fantasy monastery. It's brutal. It's carved into a cliff face like someone gouged it out with a giant claw. The steps up are uneven, slick with mist, and there are iron bells hanging from the overhang that ring whenever the wind shifts. The sound is constant, soft, metallic, mournful. You feel like you are climbing toward a place that doesn't forgive. Jodie doesn't go up openly. She watches first. She rents a room at an inn across the ravine and sits by the window for hours, hood up, knuckles white around a chipped mug of tea she never drinks. And the show lets that waiting breathe. It shows you her gaze tracking tiny figures moving in the courtyard, children doing drills with wooden sticks, nuns in ash-grey robes sweeping, a pair of older novices carrying water buckets that slosh and glitter in the cold light. Jodie's eyes keep snagging onto little girls near the far wall, their movements mirroring each other like they're tethered. One is quick, restless, always hopping onto the ledge like she's testing gravity. The other is calmer, watching before she moves, like she's already learned caution. Those are her daughters, Lyra and Nessa. And yes, the drama makes sure you can tell them apart, which I appreciate because some twin plots are just two identical children, and you are like, okay, which one is which? Lyra has a faint streak of copper in her hair that catches the light like a spark. Nessa has darker lashes and this habit of pressing her thumb to her palm whenever she's thinking. Small physical tells. The show gives them personhood. Not just a plot. Jodie seeing them is one of those moments where the acting does the heavy lifting without the script having to scream. Her face goes soft in a way we haven't seen since before Paul humiliated her. It's like her whole body briefly forgets the world is dangerous. Her throat moves like she's swallowing a sob, but she doesn't cry. She just watches, breathing shallow, like if she breathes too hard, she'll break the spell. And then the rehook comes in like a dagger because Lyra, the bolder twin, runs toward a training brazier. One of the nuns is using it to cauterize a rope end, and the flame bends toward her little hand like it's bowing. Not big, not explosive. Just a clear, unnatural tilt. The nun snatches the brazier away fast, glancing around like someone might have seen. And Jodie, across the ravine, stiffens because she realizes the convent isn't just protecting the twins. It's hiding them. From everyone. Including her, if she can't prove she's safe. That's when Jodie does something that made me whisper, "Oh, you are so smart," at my screen. She doesn't go to the Mother Superior first. She goes to the twins. Not directly, she's not reckless. She waits until dusk when the courtyard empties, then follows the perimeter path to a lower ledge where the convent's laundry lines hang over the cliff. Mist rolls in, thick enough to cover movement. The bells above ring softly in the wind, masking footfalls. Jodie climbs the last section with her hands, fingers digging into wet stone, and when she pulls herself up, her palms are scraped raw. She doesn't care. On the other side of that laundry wall, Lyra and Nessa are playing a quiet game with stones, stacking them into little towers and knocking them down, repeating like a ritual. Two small figures in grey novice tunics, hair tied back with plain cord, faces serious in that way children get when they're pretending not to feel something. Jodie crouches behind a hanging sheet, heart punching her ribs. She whispers their names, barely audible. Lyra's head snaps up first. Nessa follows, slower, eyes narrowing. Neither girl runs to her. That's important. They don't have the mommy responds because they don't remember her as mommy. They remember a scent, a warmth, a voice from early childhood, but 5 years is an ocean. Lyra steps forward like she's ready to bite if she has to. "Who are you?" she asks. And the delivery is so good, this kid actor has attitude without sounding like an adult script in a child's mouth. Nessa doesn't speak, but her thumb presses into her palm, and the nearest laundry line flickers with a faint heat shimmer. Their bodies are small, but their magic is already answering their emotions. Jodie takes off her glove. Shows her bare hand. She doesn't show her face fully, because that would be too much too fast, but she shows them the one thing they might recognize, the faint branching trace of the ember brand that still lives under her skin, like a riverbed after a flood. The air changes. The girl's eyes fix on her hand like it's a flame they can't look away from. Lyra's chin lifts, stubborn. "My hands do that too," she says, like it's a dare. Nessa's voice is quieter when she finally speaks. "When you are scared," she says. Not a question. A statement. Like she's naming a shared secret. And Jodie, voice cracking just enough to be real but not so much it becomes melodrama, says, "I was scared every day I wasn't with you." That line hit me harder than I expected. Because it's not trying to justify leaving. It's not, "I had to." It's just grief. It's confession. And it's the first time the drama lets Jodie admit she didn't choose freedom by leaving them. She chose pain. On purpose. For their safety. But before the scene can soften, Nessa's gaze flicks to Jodie's face. She squints. "Your eyes," she whispers. And you can see recognition trying to bloom and failing because Jodie looks different. Jodie smiles, a small trembling thing, and she reaches out with one finger, slowly, giving them choice. Lyra doesn't let her touch. She steps back. Nessa doesn't step forward either, but she doesn't retreat. She just watches, like she's measuring whether this is a trick. And then, this is the kind of detail that makes the show feel alive. Lyra suddenly asks, "Do you know the song?" Jodie freezes. "What song?" she asks, and her voice is too tight. Lyra rolls her eyes like she can't believe the adult is being stupid. "The sleep song," she says. "The one about the river and the fireflies." Jodie closes her eyes for half a second because she remembers. She sang it in that midwife hut, delirious with exhaustion, while the lantern flames danced too tall. She opens her eyes and hums, very softly. A simple melody. The wind carries it. Nessa's lashes flutter like she's fighting tears she doesn't understand. Lyra's shoulders drop a fraction. For a heartbeat, you think the reunion is going to happen right there. You think they're going to run into her arms. And then the bells above ring sharp. Someone open the upper gate. Footsteps approach. A nun's voice calls the twins' names. Jodie pulls back instantly, slipping behind the sheet. The twins turn, faces blank, trained. Jodie watches a nun shepherd them away, hand on their shoulders, gentle but firm. Nessa glances back once, just once, eyes searching the laundry line. Jodie doesn't move. She lets her go. And I swear, the self-control in that moment is its own kind of love. The show doesn't romanticize motherhood as constant closeness. It makes it strategic. Sometimes love looks like staying hidden. But if you think Melody is the only one manipulating sightlines, the Dragon Crown is doing it too. The next day, the Queen Regent, Saphira Draken, holds a blessing ceremony at the Palace Temple, an event that is clearly a pretext to lure out anyone connected to the rumored flamboying children. Saphira is a great addition to the cast because she's not evil. She's pragmatic in that cold, state-first way. She's the kind of ruler who would absolutely sacrifice one family to prevent a war, and she would sleep fine afterward. She also clocks Nick immediately. There's this scene where she greets him with all the proper ceremony, but her eyes are studying his hands, his neck, the subtle smoke that curls from his breath when he exhales too sharply. She asks him, "Does it hurt?" and Nick, because he's not used to being asked that by someone who isn't trying to own him, hesitates. Then he answers. Flat, it always hurts. Safira nods like she's taking inventory. And this is where the show's politics start getting deliciously tangled. Safira wants an alliance with the Burning Realm to deter the wild wastes. But she also wants leverage over Nick because he's dangerous. The twins, if they exist, are leverage. Jodie, if she's alive, is leverage. So Safira subtly allows the rumor to spread, knowing it will pull predators into the open. Which brings us back to Paul, who is basically a walking example of men will build entire careers to avoid one conversation. Paul has positioned himself as Safira's trusted court negotiator. He's married Alina, who is so socially intelligent it's honestly scary, and together they host receptions like spiderwebs. Paul's public persona is calm diplomacy. Privately, he's sweating. Because if Jodie is back, his abandonment isn't just a moral stain. It's a political mistake. Dragonslayer bloodlines are national assets. Abandoning one is treason adjacent. And the show doesn't let him off easy. There's a scene where Paul sits alone in his office, staring at an old engagement ring he never returned to Jodie's family. He runs his thumb along it like he's trying to scrub guilt away. Alina walks in without knocking. Because she doesn't knock, she owns space, and she says, casually, "You've been pale for days." Paul tries to lie. Alina doesn't even entertain it. She says, "If your past is walking around Drakenfall, I suggest you decide whether you want it buried or bought." And the way she says, "bought," is chilling. Like she's discussing grain prices. This is also where I'll give a contrarian take that I know will annoy some people. I don't think Alina is the villain viewers are going to want her to be. She's cold, yes. She's morally flexible, yes. But the drama writes her as a product of court survival, not a cartoon. She's not doing evil because she enjoys it. She's doing evil because the court rewards it. And weirdly, she's honest about it. That honesty, twisted as it is, makes her more interesting than a lot of sweet rival wife archetypes. She's a shark, but at least she's not pretending she's a goldfish. Anyway, while all these adults are playing chess, Jodie is still trying to figure out how to get her daughters out of Skyhold without triggering a national incident. She goes to Oren, the runesmith, in the lower city. Oren's workshop is this cramped, smoky space filled with etched metal plates and jars of powdered bone. The walls are covered in half-finished sigils like graffiti. Oren himself is one of those characters who looks like he sleeps in his clothes and laughs like he's choking, dry, sharp, always half a second from sarcasm. He also has one of the funniest lines in the show, delivered deadpan, when Jodie asks if he can forge a ward pass to get into Skyhold. He looks her up and down and goes, "Do I look like I can forge a pass to a dragon priest convent?" Then he pauses, sighs, and adds, "Don't answer that. I can, but it'll cost you." And Jodie's like, "Name it." Oren says, "Your blood." A drop. Jodie doesn't hesitate. She slices her finger, lets a bead fall into his ink bowl, and the ink flares warm for a second like it's alive. Oren's eyebrows lift. "Still spicy," he mutters. That's the kind of light humor the drama sprinkles in to keep you from drowning in stress. But the ward pass isn't enough, because the bigger issue is what happens after she gets them out. 2 5-year-olds can't just disappear from a fortified convent without people noticing. Jodie needs a route, a cover story, and, most importantly, she needs someone who can stop Nick's fire if he gets close. Which is, unfortunately, her. And here's where the story does that delicious thing where romance and plot collide into the same obstacle. Jodie can't fully avoid Nick anymore because her daughter's existence is pulling him in. Their blood is his blood. The show makes this mystical but grounded. Whenever Nick gets within a certain distance of the twins, his curse reacts. Not by calming, by surging. Like the fire recognizes its own lineage and wants to mark it. Nick starts having flare-ups at night in Drakenfall. He wakes drenched, hands smoking, sheets singed. He thinks it's the cold air, or an enemy spell. Melody tells him it's Jodie's Dragon Slayer interference. She says the Dragon Slayer is trying to destabilize him. She's lying. But she's lying in a way that fits his fear, which is why it sticks. There's a scene where Nick stands at his rented palace suite window, looking out over Drakenfall's rooftops. Snow starts falling, and it hisses as it hits the heat rolling off him. Sir Kale, his knight, offers him a cup of water. The water steams. Nick doesn't take it. He says, "There's something here." Kale asks, "An enemy?" Nick's eyes narrow. "A pull," he says. "Like a hook in my ribs." And Kale, who is quietly smarter than the people around him, says, "Or like family." Nick snaps his gaze to him, furious. Kale doesn't flinch. That's the kind of slow-building ally dynamic I love. Kale is loyal, but not blindly. He's the one person in Nick's orbit who isn't afraid of the truth. Now, Melody senses Kale's skepticism, and she starts working on him too. She invites him to a private prayer at the temple, offers him blessing ash for protection, tries to bind him with spiritual obligation. Kale plays along, but you can see in his face he's filing it away. Again, this show is so much about who controls narratives. Melody is always trying to be the narrator. Kale refuses to let her. Meanwhile, Jodie gets her ward pass and returns to Skyhold at night, determined to speak to the Mother Superior. And this is where we get one of the most cinematic mini-scenes in the whole first half. Like genuinely, if you watch one sequence to see whether this drama has atmosphere, it's this. Jodie climbs the cliff path again. Fog is thicker tonight, swallowing the ravine. The bells above are louder, ringing irregular, like warning. The stone steps are slick and black, reflecting moonlight. Jodie's breath comes in pale bursts. She wears a cloak lined with rune thread orange stitched for her. When the wind hits it, you see faint sigils shimmer and vanish, like fish under ice. Halfway up, she hears voices ahead, guards. Skyhold has doubled watch because the palace has been sniffing around. Jodie presses herself into a niche in the rock, holding her breath. Two guards pass with lanterns. The lantern flames are weird around Jodie. They lean toward her again, just like at the reception. One guard mutters, "I hate this place." The fire doesn't behave. The other spits over the cliff and says, "The mother says the girls are blessed." The first guard snorts. Blessed is what you call a weapon when it's too young to hold a sword. Jodie's eyes close for a second because that line hits her like a bruise. Weapon. That's what they'll be called. That's what she's trying to prevent. When the guards move on, Jodie slips out, continues upward, and reaches the upper gate. It's iron, covered in etched runes that look like claw marks. She holds out Oren's pass. The gate doesn't open immediately. The runes flare a dull red, reading her. Reading her blood. Jodie's jaw clenches. The emberbrand under her skin warms, like it's being interrogated. Then the gate unlocks with a deep click that sounds like a bone snapping. Inside, the courtyard is empty, snow dusting the stone. Torches burn in brackets, their flames unnaturally still. Jodie crosses quickly, boots crunching. She reaches the main hall and knocks. No answer. She knocks again, harder. A door opens a crack. A novice peers out, eyes wide, and when she sees Jodie's face, she flinches like she's seen a ghost. Because the novices know the twins' origin story in fragments. They know a mother exists. They've mythologized her. The novice leads Jodie down a corridor lit by candles in glass cups. The air smells like incense and cold stone. They pass a doorway where you hear children's laughter. Lyra's laugh is sharper, Nessa's softer. Jodie's throat tightens. She keeps walking because if she stops, she won't move again. They reach the Mother Superior's chamber. The door swings open, and Mother Mera stands there like a carved statue. She's older, hair braided tight, face lined in a way that looks earned, not aged. Her eyes are pale and alert. She doesn't offer a seat. She says, "You came back." Not a greeting. An accusation. Jodie bows, respectful but not submissive. "I came for my daughters," she says. Meera's gaze flicks to Jodie's cheek, to the faded ember brand. "You look different," she says. Jodie answers, "I had to." Meera's mouth tightens. That's not an answer. Jodie meets her eyes. "It's the only one I have." And then Meera drops the real bomb. The palace has sent inquisitors. The Burning Lord has entered Drakenfall. The rumors you feared are already here. If you take them now, you will bring war to this cliff. Jodie's voice stays steady, but her hands clench behind her back. "If I leave them here, the palace will take them anyway," she says. "Or Melody will." Meera's eyes sharpen at that name. "You know the Burning Lord's oracle," she says. Jodie nods. "I know what she is." Meera studies her for a long beat, then says quietly, "So do I." That line is a rehook all by itself because it tells you Skyhold isn't neutral. They've been watching. They've been preparing. And suddenly the convent feels less like a sanctuary and more like a fortress waiting for siege. Meera offers a deal. Not kindness. A test. She says Jodie can have 1 hour with the twins under supervision. If the twins choose to go with her, Meera won't physically stop them. But if they don't, Jodie leaves and never returns. And if Jodie tries to force them, Skyhold will brand her an enemy and hand her to the crown. That's brutal. But it's also fair, in a way. Because Meera's job is to protect children. Not mothers. And the show doesn't make Meera a villain for that. It makes her a wall. So Jodie gets her hour. The twins are brought into the chamber by a novice. They look smaller in the candlelight, cheeks flushed from the cold. Lyra's eyes immediately go suspicious. She recognizes the voice from the laundry line. Nessa's gaze is softer, curious, but guarded. They stand together like a unit. Meera says, "This woman claims to be your mother." Lyra's chin lifts. "We don't have a mother," she says flatly. Ouch. Jodie's face flinches, just a micro flinch, like the words struck her physically. But she doesn't crumble. She kneels to be at their level. "You do," she says. "And it's me." Lyra crosses her arms. "Prove it." Nessa watches Jodie's hands. Jodie thinks, then says, "Nessa, you hide your fear by going quiet. Lyra, you hide yours by getting loud." Lyra's eyes widen a fraction. Nessa's thumb presses into her palm harder. Jodie continues, voice soft. "When you were babies, Lyra used to kick your blanket off every night. You'd get cold and scream. Nessa would grab the blanket with her tiny fists and pull it back over both of you. You were always taking care of her, Nessa." Nessa's lips part, trembling. Lyra's bravado wobbles. Lyra blurts, "That could be a lie." Jodie nods. "It could," she agrees. "So here's something that can't be." She holds out her hand again, palm up. "Touch me." Meera stiffens. "No," she starts, but Nessa is already stepping forward like she's being pulled by a magnet. She places her small hand on Jodie's palm. And the candle flames in the room bow. Every single one. In unison. Like an audience. The air warms. Not hot, safe. Like sunlight through a window. Nessa's eyes go wide, not scared, just shocked at the familiarity in her own body's response. Lyra stares, mouth open, then slowly reaches out too, touching Jodie's wrist. The warmth intensifies, and Jodie's emberbrand flares faintly under her skin. She inhales sharply because it hurts, not burning pain, but the ache of a bond snapping back into place after years stretched thin. Tears finally spill from her eyes, silent, unstoppable. She laughs once, broken. "Hi," she whispers, and it's the smallest word, but it contains 5 years of absence. Lyra's face crumples first. She tries to hold it, tries to be tough, but she's 5. She's a child. She steps forward and slams into Jodie's chest, arms wrapping around her like a rope. Nessa follows, slower, pressing her cheek to Jodie's shoulder, eyes squeezing shut like she's afraid the feeling will disappear if she looks at it. And Jodie holds them like she's been starving. She doesn't rock dramatically. She just grips. Like if she loosens her arms, the world will steal them again. I'm going to admit something kind of embarrassing, I replayed that hug. Twice. Because the actors sell it with these tiny choices, Lyra's hands fisting in Jodie's cloak like she's anchoring herself, Nessa's breath hitching as she inhales Jodie's scent like it's memory. Even Mira's face softens for half a second, and you can tell she's seen too many children without mothers to be untouched by it. And then the show does what it loves to do, it gives you tenderness and immediately charges interest. A bell rings. Not the wine bell. The alarm bell. A novice bursts in, breathless. Inquisitors at the gate, she says. Royal seal. Mira's face hardens instantly. She looks at Jodie, then at the twins clinging to her, and says, Your hour is over. Jodie's head snaps up. They'll take them, she says, voice low with panic. Mira answers, Not if we move first. And suddenly, Mira isn't a wall. She's a general. They rush the twins through a hidden passage behind the prayer hall, a narrow stairway spiraling down into the cliff. The camera goes handheld here, slightly shaky, making the sprint feel urgent and real. Torchlight flickers. Shadows jump. You hear boots on stone above, guards moving, gates opening, voices echoing. Jodie carries Nessa. Lyra runs, fast, fearless, occasionally glancing back like she's making sure Jodie is still there. Mira leads them to a cavern chamber where the walls are covered in word runes carved so deep they look like scars. In the center is a shallow pool of water so still it reflects torchlight like glass. Mira kneels, presses her palm to a rune, and the pool ripples outward, revealing a hidden tunnel beneath. An escape route. Skyhold has been planning for this. Jodie stares. You were going to run? She asks Mira. Mira doesn't look up. I was going to survive, she corrects. There's a difference. That line is so emblematic of the show's worldview. Nobody here gets to be purely noble. They get to be alive. Mira orders Jodie to take the twins through the tunnel to a safe house in the lower city, an abandoned bathhouse Oren's people control. Mira will stall the Inquisitors, claim the twins are, in spiritual retreat, by time. Jodie hesitates because leaving Mira to face the crown feels wrong. Mira snaps, Go! And Jodie goes, because motherhood means obeying the person buying your children minutes. The tunnel sequence is pure tension. It's dark, wet stone, water dripping. The twins' breathing is loud. Lyra whispers, Are they going to hurt us? Jodie answers, Not if I can help it. Lyra asks, Will you burn them? Jodie pauses. If I have to, she says, and her voice is gentle but absolute. That's the moment you understand how far she'll go now. She's not the girl Paul abandoned. She's a mother with a fuse. They emerge in the lower city through a trapdoor under a fishmonger's stall. It's gross, it's smelly, it's perfect. Jodie pulls the twins into an alley, cloak wrapped around them, and starts moving. She's almost at the bathhouse when the street ahead goes quiet in that unnatural way, like the city itself is holding its breath. A figure steps into the alley mouth. Sir Kale. He's alone, armor hidden under a cloak, hand resting near his sword but not drawing it. His eyes flick from Jodie to the twins. You can see the shock hit him because, again, children are inconvenient facts. He's staring at living proof of something Nick has been told is a lie. Jodie freezes, pulling the twins behind her instinctively. Lyra peeks around her hip, glaring like a tiny wolf. Nessa grips Jodie's cloak, thumb pressed into her palm. Kale raises one hand, palm out, non-threatening. I'm not here to take them, he says. Jodie doesn't believe him. Then why are you here? She demands. Cale's jaw tightens. Because my lord is burning, he says. And something in this city is making it worse. He looks at Jodie's hands. It's you, isn't it? Or them. Jodie's voice goes razor sharp. Don't say them like they're a problem, she snaps. Cale flinches, but he nods once, accepting the correction. You are right, he says. They're not. But the court will treat them like one. He glances over his shoulder. Nick is searching. Melody is guiding him. If he finds you like this, he won't ask questions first. That's the key. Cale isn't romantic. He's tactical. He's telling her what Nick will do because he's watched Nick become a man who acts before he thinks. Jodie asks, why help me? Cale hesitates, then says, because I've seen my lord without fire in his eyes exactly once. He swallows. It was when you touched him. He looks down at the twins again, softer. And because children shouldn't pay for adult lies. It's such a grounded motivation. It's not, I ship you. It's ethics. Jodie doesn't fully trust him, but she uses him. She asks for one thing, a location. Where is Nick staying? Cale tells her. Then he adds, if you go to him, go careful. Jodie gives him a humorless smile. Careful is not an option I've had for years, she says. And she slips away, taking the twins into the bathhouse safe house. The bathhouse is another great set, cracked mosaic floors, old steam vents, pools drained and dusty, the air smelling faintly of minerals. Oren's crew has turned it into a hideout with blankets and lanterns and a stash of forged papers. Lyra immediately climbs onto the edge of a drained pool like it's a stage. Nessa sits cross-legged, watching everything. They're not passive. They're assessing their new environment like tiny survivors. Oren shows up, takes one look at the twins, and just exhales this long, defeated breath. You didn't mention you were smuggling in a whole future civil war, he says. Jodie replies, it slipped my mind. That's a nice little dry exchange, and it's also the show letting you breathe for 1 second before it tightens the noose again. Because guess what happens when 2 half-elemental children get stressed in a bathhouse full of flammable cloth and lantern oil? Magic leaks. Lyra gets frustrated when Oren tries to shoo her off the pool ledge. She stomps her foot. The lantern flames leap. Oren yelps, dives to cover the oil jars. Nessa, seeing chaos, goes quiet, and the air cools suddenly, like the heat got sucked out, causing the lantern glass to fog. Jodie catches it instantly. She kneels, takes both their hands, and whispers, breathe with me. The show has this gorgeous close-up of Jodie's fingers wrapped around their small hands, her ember brand faintly glowing, their skin responding. The sound design softens into that ritual drumbeat again, but quieter, like a heartbeat. And the twins calm. The flames settle. The fog clears. This is important because it shows Jodie isn't just their mother emotionally. She's their regulator. Their magic anchor. Without her, they're a danger to themselves. With her, they can be children. That's why her mission isn't optional. It's necessary. Now, the plot could keep Jodie hidden here for episodes. It doesn't. Because Nick is already on the move. Nick's next scene is him in the palace suite, ripping off his gloves because his palms are smoking. Melody is behind him, voice soft, saying, it's the dragon slayer, like she's soothing a child. Nick snarls, she's dead, because he wants her to be dead, because that would make his feelings irrelevant. Melody says, then why does the fire call? She offers him a vial of cooling draught. He drinks it, grimacing. The camera lingers on Melody's hand as she pockets the empty vial. Her fingers are stained faintly black. Poison. Not lethal, psychotropic. The show confirms later that Melody has been dosing Nick with Ashruth, a plant that amplifies paranoia and makes dreams feel like memories. It's how she's been poisoning his mind with lies, in a literal way, not just metaphorical. And you see the effect. Nick's eyes glaze slightly. His breathing slows, but his gaze sharpens into something ugly. Melody whispers, "I can help you find her," and Nick, voice rough, says, "If I find her, I'll end it." Melody smiles like she just won a prayer. This is one of those moments where I wanted to grab Nick by the collar through the screen and be like, "Sir, please." But the show doesn't want you comfortable. It wants you angry at him. Because later, his redemption has to cost something. If he's never truly wrong, then there's no arc. And he is wrong here. Horribly. So Nick leaves the palace suite with Kale and a small guard unit. Kale tries to steer him away from Melody's influence by suggesting they investigate the Inquisitor's movement first. Nick ignores him. He follows the pull in his ribs, following the fire's reaction like a compass. And the show shoots this pursuit in this really cool way where Nick's curse flares in proximity to the twins, causing street torches to flare as he passes. People step back. Snow hisses. Dogs whine. It feels like a predator moving through prey. Jody, in the bathhouse, feels it too. The air warms. The twins both sit up at the same time, eyes wide, like they heard a sound no one else did. Lyra whispers, "He's here." Jody's heart drops. "Who?" Nessa answers, very quietly, "The fireman." That line is adorable and terrifying. Because it means they remember him in some primal way. Not as father, but as a presence in their blood. Jody stands, cloak already in her hands, mind racing. Oren says, "If the burning lord is close, you need to leave." Jody shakes her head. "If I run, he'll chase," she says. "And the city will burn." Oren stares at her like she's insane. She might be. But she's also right. Nick isn't just a man. He's a walking curse. If he loses control in a crowded city, people die. So Jody makes the decision that changes the whole middle arc. She goes to Nick first. On purpose. She walks into the wolf's mouth to keep her children safe. She doesn't bring the twins. That's the hardest part. She tells Oren to keep them hidden and gives Lyra and Nessa the kind of goodbye you give when you don't know if you are coming back. Lyra refuses to let go of her hand. Nessa's eyes are huge, wet. Jody crouches, cups their faces, and says, "No matter what happens, you stay here. You listen to Oren. You do not follow." Lyra starts to protest. Jody's voice turns steel. "Lyra." Lyra shuts up, lip trembling. Nessa whispers, "Are you going to fight him?" Jody answers honestly, "If I have to. But I'm going to try to stop him first." Then she leaves the bathhouse alone, hood up, moving through alleys toward the palace district. And the meeting is staged like a showdown, but it's not flashy. It's a narrow courtyard behind an abandoned shrine, snow falling, stone slick. Jody steps into the open and waits. She doesn't hide. She lets Nick come to her. He arrives like a storm. Cloak snapping, eyes burning, breath steaming. Kale is behind him, tense. Two guards flank him. Nick's gaze locks on Jody's hooded figure and you can see the hatred snap into place, fed by 5 years of lies. He points his hand at her, and flame curls around his fingers, blue and vicious. "Show your face," he commands. Jody lifts her hood. Nick's expression falters, not because he recognizes her, but because he doesn't. The woman in front of him is not the face he's been hunting in his mind. His hatred stutters, searching for a target. "Who are you?" he demands. Jody's voice is calm. "You don't remember my face," she says. "But your fire remembers my hands." Nick's jaw tightens. "Liar," he spits. He steps forward, flame rising higher. The guards shift nervously. Kale's eyes flick between them, calculating how to stop this from going lethal. Jodie doesn't move. She holds out her hand, palm up, the same gesture she used with the twins. If I'm lying, she says, burn me. Nick's eyes narrow. He looks like he wants to. He looks like he's been wanting to for 5 years, because burning her would mean burning the memory of how desperately he needed her. He snaps his hand forward and flame lashes toward her. And the moment it touches her skin, it dies. Not sputters. Dies. Like a candle pinched between fingers. The blue fire collapses into smoke, curling around her wrist like confused mist. Nick freezes mid-step, eyes widening just enough to show genuine shock. The air around them drops into that familiar hush, the sound design pulling everything back, forcing you to sit inside the silence of recognition. Jodie's hand doesn't shake. She steps forward, closes the distance, and places her palm on his chest. Nick's entire body shudders. The curse recedes under her touch like an animal being soothed against its will. His shoulders drop. His breath catches. His eyes go glassy. For one split second, he looks like the man from 5 years ago, the man who finally slept. Then the paranoia slams back in. His face hardens again, like he's furious his body betrayed his hate. He grabs her wrist, not gentle, not crushing, but controlling. How? He growls. Who taught you? Jodie looks up at him, eyes shining with unshed tears, and says, very quietly, I did not leave to betray you. Nick's grip tightens. You left, he snaps. You disappeared. You stole? I stole nothing, Jodie interrupts, voice sharp for the first time. I left because your court wanted to own me. Because your oracle wanted me dead. Because you were one lie away from chaining me to your bed as a cure. Kale flinches slightly at that, because he knows it's true. Nick's face flashes with anger and something like shame. He opens his mouth to deny it, then closes it. Because he remembers. He remembers the possessiveness. He remembers how close he came to making her a prisoner of necessity. And this is where Melody's poison matters, because Nick's next move is not what a sane, clear-headed person would do. Instead of asking, instead of listening, he yanks Jodie forward and says, then explain why you were seen near the archive vault. Jodie's eyes go cold. Melody told you that, she says. Nick's gaze flickers. He doesn't answer. Jodie nods once, like a verdict. She has been feeding you rot for years, she says. Nick's nostrils flare. Do not speak her name like you know her, he snarls. Oh, I know her, Jodie says, and there's something in her voice that makes Kale's head tilt, like he's suddenly paying attention in a different way. I know the way she smiles when she's lying. I know the way she touches you like you are property. I know the way she watched me leave and looked relieved. Nick's eyes flash. His fire twitches, trying to rise, but Jodie's hand on his chest keeps it down. That physical dynamic is so good, by the way, the power isn't who can hurt who. It's who can stop the hurting. Jodie isn't threatening him with fire. She's controlling the absence of it. Nick leans in, voice low and lethal. If you are her, if you are the dragon slayer, he says, then you are exactly who I need to question. Jodie's stomach drops because she realizes what he's about to do. He's about to arrest her. Not because he's sure she's guilty, but because he's terrified of what she means. She tries one last truth. Nick, she says, using his name like a key. I had your children. And the courtyard goes dead still. Kale's eyes widen. The guards exchange confused glances. Nick's expression doesn't soften, it fractures. For a second, he looks almost blank. Like his brain cannot compute the sentence. Then the paranoia claws back. No, he says flatly. You are lying? Jodie's eyes fill. I'm not, she whispers. Twin girls. 5 years old. Nick's face twists with something that looks like agony. He shakes his head once, hard, like he's trying to shake the idea loose. If that's true, he says, voice breaking into a growl, then you hid them from me. Jody answers, fierce, I protected them from your court. That's the moment it becomes clear, even if Nick believes her, he will still feel wronged. Because in his mind, fatherhood equals claim. In Jody's mind, fatherhood is irrelevant if the father is surrounded by predators. Two truths colliding. And this is where the show's moral mess gets really juicy. Because as a viewer, you want Nick to drop to his knees and beg and be soft. But if he did that, it would feel fake. This man has been burning and lied to and paranoidosed for half a decade. His first reaction to a life-altering truth is not going to be healthy. It's going to be possession. Nick steps back abruptly, ripping his chest away from her palm, and instantly his fire surges, small, uncontrolled. He hisses, pain flashing. Jody instinctively reaches again, but Nick raises his hand like, don't. He's angry at her touch now because it makes him vulnerable. Take her, he orders the guards. Cale's head snaps toward him. My lord, he starts, but Nick cuts him off with a look that says, obey. The guards grab Jody's arms. She doesn't fight physically, she goes still, eyes locked on Nick. If you take me, she says, voice trembling with rage, your oracle will kill my daughters. Nick's face hardens. Then I'll keep them safe, he says. Jody laughs once, bitter, wet-eyed. From who? She whispers. From you. And that's where the scene ends, not with a kiss, not with a dramatic confession, but with Jody being dragged away in the snow while Nick stands there shaking, fire flickering around his hands like a confused animal, Cale staring after Jody like he's watching the beginning of a disaster. If you are not hooked by that, you are stronger than me. Because the next chunk of the drama is basically a pressure cooker, Jody is now inside Nick's reach again, but not as a lover, as a prisoner. The twins are hidden in Oren's bathhouse, but their magic is leaking, and the city is crawling with inquisitors. Melody senses Jody has resurfaced and moves to finish what she started. And Nick, trapped between his body remembering Jody and his mind being poisoned against her, starts making decisions that actively ruin him. And the show does not rush the consequences. It lingers on them. Jody is taken to the palace Nick has commandeered, but it's not a cozy, we locked you in a beautiful room. It's a gilded interrogation cage. Heavy curtains. Heat braziers. Guards at the door. Nick orders that she be treated with respect, which is the kind of line men use when they think politeness cancels imprisonment. Jody clocks it immediately. She tests the window. Warded. She tests the door. Locked. She sits in the center of the room and stares at the brazier flames like she's staring down a threat. Melody arrives minutes later, of course she does. She sweeps in with her pale robes and her pretty face, pretending surprise. So the rumor was true, she says softly. Jody doesn't stand. She doesn't bow. She just looks up at Melody with a flat, cold gaze and says, you've been waiting 5 years to see me in chains. Melody's smile doesn't slip, but her eyes sharpen. Chains, she says, feigning confusion. You are a guest. Jody's laugh is humorless. Then open the door, she says. Melody's smile tightens. She steps closer, voice dropping. You should have stayed gone, she whispers. And I want to highlight the acting here because the actress playing Melody does this thing where she keeps her face serene, but the anger is in the stillness. In the way she doesn't blink. In the way her hand hovers near Jody's cheek, not touching, like she wants to smear the ember brand back on her skin. It's restraint as threat. Jody doesn't flinch. That's the new Jody. She says, where is the servant boy you had dragged away? Melody's eyes flicker for a fraction of a second, just long enough to confirm guilt. Melody answers, dead, casually. Like she's saying the weather is bad. Jody's breath catches. Rage flashes across her face. And here's the personal confession moment for me as a viewer, I felt my stomach drop. Because the drama doesn't treat side characters like disposable. It made you like that boy? It made him brave. So hearing, dead, like it's nothing? It made me genuinely cold. That's when Melody crossed from annoying rival to, oh, you're a monster in silk. Jodie says, voice shaking with controlled fury, you killed him to silence a warning. Melody tilts her head. I killed him because he was loyal to the wrong woman, she replies. Then she leans in, almost kindly. You should understand loyalty. You abandoned my lord when he needed you most. Jodie's eyes blaze. I left because you were poisoning him, she says. Melody's smile turns sharp. Everyone poisons everyone at court, she whispers. I simply do it better. That line is like the thesis of the Palais arc. Court politics as slow violence. Melody doesn't believe she's evil. She believes she's competent. Nick walks in midway through this exchange, and the tension spikes because Melody instantly switches masks. Her voice becomes soft. Her posture becomes deferential. My lord, she says, I came to make sure our guest is comfortable. Jodie looks at Nick, silently begging him to see the performance for what it is. Nick doesn't. Not yet. He looks tired, jaw clenched, eyes shadowed. He says to Melody, leave us. Melody hesitates, tiny, almost imperceptible, then obeys, but not before she brushes her fingers across Nick's sleeve in that possessive way, like she's reminding him who's been here for him. Then she's gone. Nick turns to Jodie. For a second, the room is quiet except for the brazier crackle. And here's the thing, even through all his anger, Nick looks at Jodie like he's thirsty. Like he's starving. Like her presence is both relief and torment. He says, tell me the truth. Jodie laughs, soft and pained. I've been telling you the truth, she says. Nick's eyes narrow. Then why didn't you come back, he asks. Jodie's voice breaks. Because you would have taken them, she says. Because your court would have used them. Because you didn't know how to be anything but burning. Nick flinches as if she slapped him. You don't get to judge how I survived, he snaps. Jodie's gaze doesn't waver. Then don't judge how I did, she replies. That back and forth is written with such clean emotional logic. It's not misunderstandings. It's clashing wounds. They're both right and both wrong in ways that hurt. Nick asks her where the twins are. Jodie refuses. Nick's patience snaps. He grabs her wrist again, pulling her closer, and you see the fire twitch under his skin like it's trying to surge. Jodie instinctively presses her palm to his wrist, calming it. Their bodies respond faster than their minds. That's the tragedy. Their magic knows. Their trauma argues. Nick's voice drops. If you don't tell me, he says, I will find them myself. Jodie's eyes widen with fear. And if Melody finds them first, she challenges. Nick bristles at the name. Melody is loyal, he says automatically, like a trained response. Jodie stares at him like he just said the sky is green. Nick, she whispers, and there's grief in it, loyal to what? You can see the question land. For half a second, Nick looks uncertain. Then the Ashruth paranoia pushes back, and his face hardens again. He steps away from her touch like he's rejecting comfort. You'll stay here until you decide to cooperate, he says. Jodie's voice turns icy. If my daughters die because of this, she says, I will never forgive you. Nick pauses at the door. His shoulders tense. He doesn't turn around. He just says, Lo, you never forgave me for burning either. Then he leaves. And if you are thinking, okay, he's being emotionally manipulative, yes. He is. But it's also true. Jodie did resent the way his curse made everything about him. She did feel trapped by his need. The show is willing to let both of them be flawed, which is why the romance doesn't feel like cotton candy. It feels like two people trying to build trust on a foundation of ash. Outside, Kale corners Nick in the hallway. He speaks carefully, because he's talking to a lord who could ruin him. My lord, he says, if she truly calms the curse, she's not our enemy. Nick's eyes are bloodshot. Everyone is my enemy, he snaps. Kale doesn't back down. Then you have already lost, he says quietly. Nick turns on him. You are getting bold, he says. Kale meets his gaze. I'm getting tired, he replies. Tired of watching you punish yourself in the name of being strong? That line sits there like a match. Nick doesn't answer. He walks away. But you can see it lodged under his skin. Meanwhile, Oren is realizing the bathhouse is not as safe as he thought. The Inquisitors are sweeping the lower city, checking for ward signatures. And the twins, being 5, are not exactly stealth operatives. Lyra gets bored. She wants to go outside. She wants to see the fireman. Nessa wants to stay, but she's anxious, and her anxiety makes the air around her shift, making lanterns flicker. Oren's crew tries to keep them calm with sweets and stories. It barely works. There's this sweet little scene where Oren sits with them and tries to distract them by showing them how he carves runes. Lyra is fascinated. She asks a million questions. Nessa watches quietly, then points at a particular sigil and says, that one hurts. Oren freezes. How do you know that? He asks. Nessa shrugs. It feels sharp, she says. Oren looks at her like she's a tiny prophet. Because she is. The twins aren't just fire. They're sensitive to magic structures. That makes them even more valuable, which makes everything worse. And here's another rehook. As Oren is carving, the rune ink suddenly smears by itself, curling into a different shape. Oren's face goes pale. Someone is tracking the blood, he mutters. Lyra asks, whose blood? Oren looks toward the door like he can see through walls. Your mother's, he says. Meaning, Jodie being imprisoned in Nick's warded suite has created a magical tether that Inquisitors can trace back to the twins. The more Nick keeps Jodie contained in high-level wards, the more her blood signature pulses like a beacon. It's a brilliant plot mechanic because it turns Nick's controlling instinct into an actual danger to his children. So Oren makes a call. He sends his fastest runner to Kale. Not Nick. Kale. Because Kale is the one person who might act without Melody's filter. Kale receives the message while standing outside Nick's suite, debating whether to disobey orders and speak to Jodie. The runner whispers, the children are here. They're being hunted. Kale's face tightens. He looks at the suite door, then down the hallway toward Melody's chambers. He makes a choice. He leaves. Kale's decision is one of the turning points for the mid-arc, because now you have an internal ally in the Burning Realm camp who knows the twins exist and who knows Melody can't be trusted. That's how conspiracies start unraveling. Not with grand reveals. With one man choosing ethics over obedience. Kale goes to Oren's bathhouse, sees the twins with his own eyes, and you can tell it rattles him. He kneels to their level, tries to smile. Lyra stares at him and says, are you the fireman's soldier? Kale blinks. Yes, he says. Lyra asks, is he mean? Kale's throat tightens. He answers honestly, he can be. Nessa asks, does he hurt? Kale nods, slower. Yes, he says. Nessa looks down, thumb pressing into her palm. Then he's scared, she whispers. That line, coming from a child, lands like a slap. Because it reframes Nick instantly. Not as monster. As scared. And it sets up the show's eventual emotional payoff without spoiling it. The children see through the adult armor faster than the adults do. Kale tells Oren they need to move the twins tonight. Oren says, where? Kale hesitates, then says, somewhere Melody can't reach. Oren snorts. That's nowhere, he says. Kale's eyes flick up. No, he replies. It's the one place she would never dare enter. Oren frowns. Where? Kale says, the Burning Lord's own convoy camp. Under my watch. And Oren laughs in his face like it's the dumbest idea he's ever heard. But Kale is serious. He explains that Melody's agents are focusing on the lower city and the convent, not Nick's camp, because they assume Nick controls his own people completely. Hiding the twins in plain sight inside Nick's circle is risky, but it's also the kind of risk that works because no one expects it. Oren looks at the twins, then at the streets outside, hearing distant Inquisitor calls. He curses. Fine, he says. But if your lord burns them by accident, I'll haunt you. Kale replies, dry, if he burns them, there won't be enough of me left to haunt. So they move. Oren wraps the twins in thick cloaks, smudges ash on their cheeks to dull their glow, and they slip out through the bathhouse back exit into the alley labyrinth. Kale leads them, hood up, moving fast. Lyra whispers, this feels like stealing, like she's half excited. Oren mutters, it is stealing. We are stealing you from the kingdom. Nessa asks, will Mama find us? Oren's mouth tightens. Kale answers gently, she will, he says. She always does. And while that's happening, Jody is trapped in Nick's suite, trying to think through stone and wards. She can feel something wrong in her blood, this faint tug, like a thread being pulled. She presses her palm to the floor, whispering an old dragon slayer sensing chant her grandmother taught her. The camera circles her slowly, making the room feel like it's closing in. The brazier flames bend slightly toward her, answering. She senses movement. Her daughters are being moved. She doesn't know where. Panic rises like bile. She bangs on the door, demanding to see Nick. Guards ignore her. She shouts for Kale. No answer. She turns, breath shaking, and for a second the old Jody almost breaks, almost collapses into helplessness. Then the new Jody kicks in. She stops. She closes her eyes. She inhales. She looks at the brazier. And she makes a choice. She reaches into the flame. Not to hurt herself. To call the old dragon slayer pact. Her fingers plunge into fire, and instead of burning, the flame wraps around her like silk. The ember brand on her cheek flares brighter than it has in years, branching like lightning under her skin. The ward runes on the window flicker in response. Jody's eyes open, reflecting orange. She whispers, answer me, and the flame in her hand elongates into a thin ribbon, sliding toward the window rune lines, tasting them. The ward shudders. It doesn't break. Nick's wards are strong. But Jody finds the seam. Not by brute force, but by understanding. Dragon slayers were designed to interrupt magical structures. She presses the flame ribbon into the seam, and you hear this high, thin whine like metal under pressure. The ward rune cracks, just a hairline fracture. Jody smiles, grim. There you are, she whispers. This is one of those moments that sells the came back hotter part of the title in a way that isn't just physical attractiveness. Jody isn't hotter because she's prettier now. She's hotter because she's more dangerous. She learned how to use her blood like a blade. She breaks the ward enough to slip a signal out, not a full escape, but a flare. A dragon slayer distress flare that only people with flame blood will sense. It's risky. It's basically screaming into the magical world, I'm here. But she's out of options. Her daughters are moving. She needs someone to find her. And guess who senses it? Nick. He's in the palace courtyard, arguing with Saphira's Inquisitor captain about jurisdiction because the Dragon Crown is trying to assert control over the Dragon Slayer prisoner. Nick is refusing, claiming Burning Realm authority. It's a political chest thump scene, but the interesting part is that mid-argument, Nick suddenly freezes. His eyes unfocus. His hand lifts slightly, fingers twitching like they're feeling heat through air. He senses Jodie's flare like a hand closing around his throat. His fire surges, then settles, like it's responding. He turns abruptly, leaving the argument mid-sentence. The Inquisitor captain shouts after him. Nick doesn't care. He walks fast toward his suite, jaw clenched, eyes stormy. Saphira watches him go, expression unreadable. Then she murmurs to her advisor, the dragon slayer is his weakness. And her advisor replies, or his leash. That's the dragon crown's mindset in one exchange. Nick reaches his suite, throws open the door, strides inside like he's ready to kill someone. He finds Jodie standing by the window, emberbrand flaring, fingers still faintly lit with flame. For a second, both of them just stare at each other. They're vibrating with unsaid things. Nick's voice is low. What did you do? He asks. Jodie lifts her chin. I called for help, she says. Nick's eyes narrow. From who? Jodie answers, from anyone who isn't drugging you. Nick's face flashes. You keep saying that, he growls. Prove it. Jodie's gaze flicks to the table where Melody's cooling draught vials sit sometimes. Today, there's a fresh vial on the tray, sealed. Jodie walks over, picks it up, holds it up to the light. The liquid inside looks clear, innocent. She pops the seal, dips a finger in, and the emberbrand on her hand reacts, heat flares, turning the liquid slightly grey at the edge. Poison residue. Ashruth. Nick's eyes widen. No, he whispers, almost involuntary. Jodie sets the vial down gently, like it's a corpse. She's been feeding you paranoia, she says. That's why you can't remember me properly. That's why you see betrayal in everything. Nick's breathing turns uneven. He looks like someone just told him his entire life is a lie. And here's the part that is so good and so painful, Nick's first reaction is not rage at Melody. It's shame. He looks away from Jodie, jaw trembling slightly, and you can see him hating himself for being controlled. He says, Hers, why didn't you tell me this 5 years ago? Jodie's eyes shine. I tried, she whispers. You didn't listen. Nick's shoulders slump. His fire dims. For the first time since he arrived in Drakenfall, he looks less like a storm and more like a man. He turns back to her. Where are they? He asks again, but his voice is different now. Softer. Not entitled. Desperate. Jodie hesitates. She wants to believe this softness. She also knows softness can vanish the second Melody appears. She says, carefully, they were safe until you brought your war into the city. Nick flinches because it's true. Jodie adds, now they're moving, and I can't feel where. Nick's eyes sharpen, suddenly focused. You can feel them, he asks. Jodie nods once. In my blood, she says. Nick steps closer, slow, as if approaching a wild animal. Then feel, he says. Now. Jodie's eyes narrow. How? Nick looks at her hands, then at his chest. Touch me, he says. Jodie's breath catches because the request is loaded. Touch has always been the line between them, comfort, power, intimacy, control. Nick is asking for it like a tool. Jodie hates that. But if it helps find her daughters, she'll do it. She places her palm on his sternum. The fire recedes instantly. Nick exhales, shaky. His eyes close for a second, and he leans into her hand like it's gravity. Jodie closes her eyes too, focusing inward. The sound design goes muffled, like we're underwater. You hear a faint double heartbeat, not hers, not his, something else, echoing. Jodie's brow furrows. She whispers, they're moving, north. Her eyes snap open. Toward the palace. Nick's eyes fly open. What? He snarls. And that's the rehook that sends the whole episode into chaos, Because if the twins are being moved toward the palace, that means one of two things. Either the inquisitors found them and are dragging them to the crown, or someone inside the palace is luring them in. Either way, it's bad. Really bad. Nick pulls away from Jodie's hand and storms toward the door, barking orders at guards to mobilize. Jodie grabs his sleeve. "If you charge in burning, you'll terrify them," she says. Nick whips around. "They're my daughters," he snaps. Jodie's eyes flash. "Then act like it," she fires back. "Not like a curse with a sword." Nick freezes because that hits. He swallows. His shoulders tense, then lower slightly, like he's trying to pull himself into control. He looks at Jodie, voice low. "Come," he says. Not a command. A plea disguised as one. They move together through the palace corridors, fast, and this is where the cinematography goes into that glossy, high-stakes mode, long tracking shots, guards peeling away, servants flattening against walls, torches flaring as Nick passes. Jodie keeps close enough to touch him if the fire surges, but not so close it looks like she's clinging. The blocking is so intentional, they're orbiting each other, not merging. They reach the inner courtyard near the palace temple, and the scene shifts into chaos. Inquisitors in dark robes are herding a crowd. Saphira's banner hangs above. You hear shouting, the clank of armor, a child crying somewhere. Nick pushes forward, eyes scanning. Jodie's heart is in her throat. And then she sees them. Lyra and Nessa, cloaks half falling off, being held by two Inquisitor guards at the edge of the crowd. Their faces are smudged with ash, but their eyes are bright with fear. Lyra is fighting, kicking, screaming. Nessa is quiet, trembling, and the air around her is cooling so fast that the Inquisitor's breath is fogging. Their magic is leaking uncontrollably because they are terrified. Jodie's body moves before her mind does. She surges forward, but a guard blocks her. She shoves past, and the ember brand on her cheek flares bright, visible now. People gasp. "Dragon Slayer," someone whispers. The word ripples through the crowd like a spark in dry grass. Nick sees the twins too, and his fire reacts violently, blue flame licking up his arm. The Inquisitors recoil. Saphira steps out onto the temple stairs, eyes sharp, and she lifts her hand in a calming gesture like she's soothing to wild beasts. "Lord Nick," she calls, voice carrying, "we found what you were seeking." Nick's voice is a growl. "Release them," he demands. Saphira tilts her head. "They are under royal protection," she says smoothly. "Children like this cannot be left in the hands of." Jodie cuts through the crowd like a blade. "They are not yours," she snaps, voice shaking with fury. Saphira's gaze lands on her, cool. "And you are?" she asks. Jodie doesn't hesitate. "Their mother," she says. The courtyard goes silent in that stunned way crowds do when a private truth becomes public spectacle. Lyra's head whips toward Jodie. "Mama," she screams, voice cracking, and that single word detonates the emotional tension like a bomb. Nessa's face crumples, and she reaches out with both hands toward Jodie, fingers trembling. And Nick, standing beside Jodie, hears it. He hears them call her Mama. He watches the twins reach for her like she's gravity. And you can see the truth hit him not as an idea, but as a physical blow. His eyes go glassy. His jaw trembles. His fire falters. This is the moment where, if you are like me, you are screaming internally, "Do not ruin this, Nick. Do not ruin this." And the drama, being the drama, immediately tests him. Because Melody steps into the courtyard from the side archway, perfectly composed, and she says, loud enough for everyone to hear, "My lord, those children are a trap." Jodie's head snaps toward her, murderous. Nick's body tenses. The crowd murmurs. Saphira's eyes flick between them, calculating. Melody continues, voice dripping concern. "The Dragon Slayer returns with strange children just as you arrive," she says. "She is manipulating your curse. She is manipulating your heart. She steps closer to Nick, reaching for his sleeve. Do not let her. And Nick does something that shocked me in the best way. He doesn't listen. He doesn't fully reject Melody yet, but he pauses. He looks at the twins. He looks at Jody. And he says, very quietly, they're afraid. It's such a simple observation. But it's the first human thing he's said about them. Not mine. Not heirs. Not weapons. Just, they're afraid. Jody's voice breaks. Of course they're afraid, she whispers. They're being held like prisoners. Nick turns his gaze back to Saphira. His voice hardens into authority. Release them, he repeats. Saphira's smile is thin. Or what? She asks. Nick's fire flickers up, dangerous. Jody instantly grabs his wrist, grounding him, and the flames die back. The crowd sees it, her touch controlling him. More murmurs. More fear. More myth-making. Nick looks down at Jody's hand on his wrist, then back up, and you can see him making a choice. He steps forward, palms open, showing he's not attacking. He speaks to the Inquisitor guards holding the twins. Let them go, he says, voice low, controlled. If you harm them, I will burn your order to ash. The threat is clear, but the delivery is calm. It's terrifying in a different way. The Inquisitor guards hesitate. Saphira's eyes narrow. She lifts her hand, about to command them to hold. And then Lyra, bless her chaotic little soul, bites the guard's hand. The guard yelps, reflexively loosening his grip. Lyra jerks free and sprints toward Jody like a fired arrow. Nessa slips from the other guard's grasp in the confusion, running too, but slower, stumbling. Jody lunges forward, catching Nessa first, scooping her up, then grabbing Lyra as she hits her knees. The twins cling to her like they're trying to fuse. Jody's sob rips out of her before she can stop it. It's raw. It's ugly. It's real. She presses her face into their hair for a second, breathing them in, anchoring. The camera goes tight, making the crowd blur around them, turning it into a private reunion in public chaos. Nick stands a step away, frozen. His hands flex like he wants to touch them but doesn't know how. He looks like a man staring at a life he didn't think he was allowed to have. And then Saphira's guards move. Not at the twins, at Jody. Because the crown doesn't care about motherhood. It cares about control. Two guards step forward to seize Jody for endangering royal security. Nick's head snaps up. His voice becomes a snarl. Do not touch her, he warns. Saphira lifts her chin. You do not command my palace, she says. Nick's fire surges again. Jody clamps her hand on his wrist without even looking, still holding the twins with her other arm, and the juxtaposition is insane, one hand mothering, one hand restraining a living weapon. That's where the episode cuts, and if you weren't already addicted, you probably are now, because the show has successfully turned one family reunion into a multi-realm hostage crisis. And I'm going to stop here for now, because the next stretch is where the palace power players start making openly violent moves, and the way Jody's own family enters the scene, like actual physical attacks, not just insults, pushes the stakes into that, okay, people are going to die, territory.